The red-hot Buffalo Bills head to SoFi Stadium to take on the moderately warm Los Angeles Rams in a big Week 15 matchup. That's coming up next on a crossover edition of Locked On Rams and Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What is up, Ramily, and what is up, Bills Mafia? Welcome to another episode of Locked On Rams and Locked On Bills, a crossover edition. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMac_LA. And today I'm joined by Locked On Bills host Joe Marino. You can follow him at the Joe Marino over on the X. And today we got a jam-packed episode. We're previewing the Bills versus Rams Week 15 matchup. We got the top storylines, key matchups. I'm throwing out a prediction, so we'll get to that. But first, today's Crossover Thursday is presented by Prize Picks. Download the app and use code LOCKEDONNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. All right, Joe, so you got the red-hot Bills, 10-2. They've won 7 straight since Stephon Diggs gave Mr. Josh Allen the side-eye there. They've been one of the hottest teams, really the hottest team in the National Football League. And you go to SoFi Stadium, we've had a lot of success. We talked about it before the game, 2022. You kind of spoiled the Rams ring night. A lot of Rams fans aren't happy about that, especially seeing Von Miller on the other team, expecting a lot of Bills Mafia out there in a big game that really will go a long way in determining if the Rams go on to win the NFC West and make the playoffs. And if you're on the Bills, you're chasing that number 1 seed in the AFC.
Yeah, that's what it's all about, Doug. And the Bills are on the hunt to be that number 1 seed in the AFC. They've already earned the tiebreaker over Kansas City, but what they need is for the pixie dust to wear off on those Kansas City Chiefs. Some of these games they keep winning is obviously detrimental to the Bills and their opportunity to be the 1 seed, and that's important. The Bills have had some good playoff runs under Josh Allen and Sean McDermott. Every year since 2020, they've won at least a playoff game. But they've never had the opportunity to have a playoff run as the number 1 seed and have the benefit of not only home field advantage, but the bye. And obviously, it's all about dethroning the Chiefs. And the Chiefs have won 3 of the last 5 Super Bowls. They go all the time. And for the Bills to have their best opportunity, it's not only getting the bye for themselves, but making sure that Kansas City doesn't get it. They had a Week 6 bye this year. You know, there's a correlation between late season buys and Super Bowl runs. And so you want to make it as difficult as possible for Kansas City to get back there. And I think obviously not allowing them to have the 1 seed and you, the Bills, to have the 1 seed would certainly change the dynamics of maybe what that postseason run can look like.
Yeah, I mean, depending where you look, basically everywhere has the Bills having more than a 50% chance of locking up that 1 seed in the AFC. And that's what you want. You want a home game in Buffalo. We saw the Snow Bowl. It did not cool off the Bills last week against the 49ers. Anytime you can beat the 49ers, you make Rams fans very happy. It's kind of like the Ninja Turtles and Power Rangers meme, kind of shaking their hands right there. Anytime you can beat the 49ers, you make us very, very happy. But yeah, I mean, you look at this Rams team. They haven't had a lot of success against the Bills of late. You mentioned what happened in 2022. Last time the Rams beat the Bills was all the way back in 2012 when Sam Bradford outdueled Fitzpatrick. You had Steven Jackson and CJ Spiller. Feels like 10,000 million years ago. But the difference between these two teams is the Bills, they're obviously surging. I mean, pretty much every single metric, every category, the number 2 scoring offense, number 6 scoring defense in the National Football League. The Rams are a team that they haven't blown out a lot of teams. They haven't looked great outside of a couple of games this season. I mean, I think really you look at beating the Vikings at home, playing well against the Lions on the road to start the season. You haven't really been dominant, but still somehow, some way, because of the NFC West, you're in a position where if you go on to win this game, you really put yourself in a really good spot to win this division. Right now, if the Rams go on to beat the Bills, you get a 24% chance of making the playoffs, which it kind of tells the story of where these teams are very different. We're talking about making the playoffs with a 24% chance, and you look at the Bills, you're looking at over 50% chance of winning the best record in the AFC. So the big takeaway here is, like I said, if you beat the Bills, you're up to 36%. If you lose, you're down to 18%. So really a win here would feel like a bonus. I don't think there's a Rams fan out there, though, that if they lose this game is going to think, oh, wow, I mean, we should have beat the best team in the NFL.
Well, I think about the Rams and obviously their journey since the Super Bowl win, obviously a step back the next season as they just lost a lot on that roster. I don't think it was that surprising to see that. But the year after, last year, they started off really slow, 3-6, They rally to finish 10-7, have a tight playoff loss to the Lions. And then this year, it's in some ways similar, 1-4 before the bye, but 5-3 since. They're getting healthy. The NFC West does appear to be pretty wide open to me. I think you can kind of say goodnight to the San Francisco 49ers based on not just their record, but just the injuries that keep compiling. And so it's coming down to Arizona, Seattle, and the Rams. Obviously, this game goes a long way to the Rams getting there. But a question that I had for you was about this team. And is that the story? Is that what everyone's saying? Kind of repeat from last year, get hot at the end and see what happens in the postseason?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at this Rams team early on, you suffered some big-time injuries. I mean, you lost your two big playmakers in Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. You had injuries along your offensive line. Your big offseason acquisition in Jonah Jackson, he missed time due to a shoulder injury. Even when he did return, he really didn't pan out. And you look at the secondary, Trey White, they took a flyer on him. You know him very well. He didn't work out. And he also had a pretty tough schedule early on. So this Rams team, they started 1-4, and it looked like we were talking about Jador Sanders and who are they going to draft? Are they going to replace Matthew Stafford? Is Cooper Kupp going to be traded to the Chiefs? And I mean, it was basically are we going to enter the down to the studs rebuild for the Rams? Are they going to have to pay that bill for some of the F them picks era mentality that Les Snead have, just wanting to go for that Super Bowl, which they were successful in going for? And then Aaron Donald also retired. So you're also kind of feeling the effects of that. And then kind of what happened was you got young players emerging. Jared Verse, Defensive Player of the Year. He's been fantastic rookie out of Florida State. Then Braden Fisk. I don't know if you saw Braden Fisk, but I want to see a fullback package with Braden Fisk based on him almost returning that touchdown. Of course, you hate the tuck roll there last week. So you got a lot of pressure from the defensive line. The defense has stepped up under Chris Shula. And really, yes, to answer your question, it does feel like with Matthew Stafford being the veteran quarterback that he is, he can almost see that light at the end of the tunnel. And he realized that, like I said, you got to win these games late in the season, and you have to find a way to take advantage of what's a weaker NFC West than anyone expected.
Yeah, I definitely understand that. You mentioned a lot of the injuries that this team had, and certainly that's true offensively, in particular with the offensive line, with the receivers. And so as I've seen this roster come together for the Rams, I think about a pivot from like a wide zone type offense to, hey, we want some big physical maulers on the inside, do inside zone, and then, of course, layering together the play action game, which is obviously a huge part of what Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay cook up offensively. With that kind of coming to life, I know that they didn't against the Saints last week. I think you saw the best version of what you believe this offense could be. How do you take that and carry that into this game against Buffalo? Like, how do you see this offense? What's the plan here to get on top of this Bills defense?
So I think 100% the plan is to see if you can run the football as effectively as you did against the Saints. Kyren Williams had his best, most efficient running game of the season. You also worked in rookie Blake Corum out of Michigan. Kind of the thunder and lightning approach kept Kyren Williams fresh out there. They're committed to the run game. You're absolutely right. I mean, this has gone to a more road grade gap duo, different type of running game. You brought in Kevin Dotson. You re-signed him. I mean, it's a little different approach that we've seen with the Rams, and it's paid dividends. But I think the biggest difference between the Rams this year and last year as far as just the offensive scheme and how it could impact this game is going to those condensed formations. The Rams run a condensed formation 61% of the time. That's the most in the NFL. And with that condensed formation, you create those leverages, you get those advantages. And Matthew Stafford, his completion rate, it skyrockets, goes to 71%, the success rate at 53%. Those are top 10 in those categories. We saw how the 49ers took advantage of condensed formations. They essentially rode it to the Super Bowl. Well, that's kind of what you want to do. And you look at the Bills, they allow the highest completion percentage, 75%, to teams out of the condensed formation. So that's kind of what I'm looking at as far as, I mean, how do you try to beat a Bills team that has so much talent, that really does not turn the ball over, that leads the league in turnover differential, that's hot as a devil's armpit coming into Los Angeles? I mean, that to me is the area, is an efficient, clean game on offense. And you really need to see an A game from Matthew Stafford and the rest of his weapons.
I think you got the right idea there in terms of attacking the Bills defense, because they're very much designed to eliminate explosive plays down the field. That's what they don't want. They want to dare you to stack play after play after play. And if you're going to get points, it's because you strung together 8, 10, 12 plays that get you down there, and then you better be able to punch it in because the Bills want to limit you to those field goals, and they get a lot of big plays in the red zone in particular. And so stressing the run defense, coming in with an efficient mindset to throw the football, I think is the right idea. It's just a matter of execution and can you limit Buffalo scoring enough for that to get you the dub?
Yeah, and they're scoring points in bunches, and that's an area where this Rams team has struggled, especially against the run, especially against the pass through their boundary corners. But I got some questions for you, Joe, on how do the Rams find a way to get a dub on Sunday. That's coming up next on this crossover edition of Locked On Rams and Locked On Bills. All right, let's talk about FanDuel, NFL fans. You can get a big return over at FanDuel, of course, America's #1 sports book. If you get a hunch in the middle of the game and you think now may not be a bad time to get in there and check out all the latest stats, you can view live play-by-play. And, of course, there's so much more on the same page where you're placing your bets. So we're going to get you started at FanDuel with $200 in bonus bets. That's guaranteed when you play your first $5 bet. Let me say it again, $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Let's take a look at what's going on with the Rams this weekend. They are underdogs against the Bills, 4.5-point underdogs. The over-under is set at 49.5. And you can get all this stuff and so much more over at FanDuel. So go to FanDuel.com and download the FanDuel app on your phone, and they're going to get you started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. All right, let's talk about Hillsdale College. Time is the most precious commodity, so don't waste it scrolling through the same mind-numbing content for hours and hours. How can you spend it wisely to improve yourself? History, economics, the great works of literature, the meaning of the U.S. Constitution. Did you study these things in school? Probably not. Or even if you did, maybe it's time for a refresher. Time and technology have changed a lot of things, but they have not changed basic fundamental truths about the world and our place in it. Our sponsor, Hillsdale College, is offering more than 40 free, that's right, free online courses, including Constitution 101, the meaning and history of the Constitution, Introduction to Free Market Economics, The Great American Story, A Land of Hope, The Rise and Fall of the Roman Republic, and a brand new documentary-style course on Marxism, socialism, and communism. I'm a big World War II buff. You got some cool stuff on World War II over there, so I definitely recommend checking that one out. And all of Hillsdale colleges are self-paced so that you can start whenever and tune in wherever. Plus, you can go deeper with readings, quizzes, discussions, or just enjoy the lectures. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register. hillsdale.edu/lockedon. And we are off and running here on Locked On Rams and Locked On Bills. I want to give a shout out to those everyday listeners out there watching Locked On Rams, listening to Locked On Rams and Locked On Bills Monday through Friday. Join that everyday listeners club. That way you won't miss a thing about your favorite team. Now, let's talk about Josh Allen. I got some questions. That's what I'll put this out there too. Bills, I know Bills Mafia watches. The Bills are my Super Bowl pick, and I made that pick on Locked On Rams. So sometimes when you're going against the other team, you hear some stuff in the comments. I got Bills over Packers. I felt Packers preseason. Things are looking pretty good for my Super Bowl pick in the Bills. But I think for me, the biggest question I have is the evolution of Josh Allen. He's always been one of the most athletic, one of the most dynamic, and then you're adding that mental component to the game is you just can't tackle this guy. He hasn't been sacked in 2 straight games. He's won 15 straight regular season games in December and January. It's the longest active streak in the NFL. And the Rams did a nice job against Derek Carr. They held him to under 200 yards. But, it's tough to get to Josh Allen. No sacks by the Niners, and he's got the weapons with Shakir. You got Amari Cooper in the mix. There's so many weapons. How have you seen Josh Allen evolve this season? And what do you think that is the key to kind of neutralizing this offense any way you can?
Yeah, Josh Allen has evolved a lot this year, and I think he's playing the best football of his career, and it comes down to decision-making and efficiency. He's very much willing to do the smart, right thing with the football, take profits, not force anything. He's not big play hunting. He certainly takes his shots when it makes sense, but he's become a lot more efficient with his decision-making, and there's a lot more yards after catch in this offense. The Bills are in the top 3 of the NFL in percentage of passing yards that come after the catch. It's been a big part of the recipe, and I think that's a big deal in this game. The Rams have really struggled with tackling. They're 4th most yards after catch over expectation so far this season, and so I'd have to think that those types of decisions continuing against the Rams with using your slot weapons, whether that's Khalil Shakir or different tight ends that they like to play in the slot, and involving your running backs, James Cook, Ray Davis, Ty Johnson in this passing game to take those profits and keep the offense on schedule. I think they've leaned into efficiency, and then Josh puts the cape on when he's got to put the cape on. And when he does, special things can happen, but he's putting on the cape more selectively and just making better decisions. He's not turning it over. I think he has 5 interceptions this year, and I think you could probably look at all 5 and realize that it's not really a bad decision or a bad throw. It was, well, Amari Cooper fell at the top of his route. Oh, the ball went through Keon Coleman's hands and into the hands of Jalen Ramsey, or he's hit as he's thrown. He doesn't expect to have it and doesn't get enough on the ball. So he's really just become a better decision maker to go with the physical upside, and it's leading to very consistent offensive production. I think the Bills have scored 30 or more points in I guess maybe 5 games in a row, maybe more. It's part of the formula right now, and they're peaking at the right time. He's surrounded by good players, and he's not surrounded by Stephon Diggs. I'll come out and tell you that it's a different mindset. It is. This offense isn't about Stephon Diggs' production anymore. It's no longer about how do we get the ball to Stephon Diggs 150 times every single year. Josh Allen can just run the play and throw the ball to the open guy. And I think you kind of mentioned it earlier that the side-eye, that nobody's thinking about Stephon Diggs anymore. It's just run the play, throw the ball to the open guy, keep the offense moving.
Yeah, I love the meme. The Bills are undefeated since this side-eye, so I love that. But, yeah, I think when you watch the Bills this season, it's clear that he's a little more freed up. He's a little more comfortable than he's always been. I remember Phil Simms talking about this. He always used to say that there comes a time in a quarterback's life that he gets to a certain age where he finally can figure out and process everything and make the right decisions at the right time. But by that time, your athleticism and your talent, your skill has started to diminish. Well, I feel like Josh Allen is getting to that point where he's reached that level, but he's just 28 years old. So that's why it's so terrifying for the league. But I love that you brought up the tackling, because that was one of my big keys in this one. The Rams have struggled with tackling, especially in big games this season. They have the second most missed tackles in the NFL. The Bills, on the other hand, they have the second fewest. The Rams have missed 96 tackles this season. That's 46 more than the Bills. The Rams are 31st in missed tackles. So the point of this is the Rams have to be at their absolute very best from a tackling standpoint to have any chance to win this football game. And I think another thing you look at too is, look, you can't win this game unless if you turn the football over. And what amazes me about this Bills team is you have 13 interceptions, but so many different players. I mean, you have the most players that have really gotten a turnover this season. You have had pick sixes. I mean, this is a team that really can turn the ball over and doesn't turn the ball over themselves. And that's why you have a 10-2 record at this point of the season.
Yeah, the ball matters, right? Giveaways, takeaways. It's the most correlative metric that you can find to winning and losing in the NFL. And yeah, that's been kind of an epiphany for, I guess, Josh Allen, because he's taking care of the football. But the takeaways have always kind of been there for the Bills on defense. And I know that some people like to say that takeaways and even sacks at times are like more random. Well, it's not when you have like 8 years in a row of being in the top 10 of takeaways. It's something that the Bills say, well, when they're asked that question, how do you get so many takeaways? They say, well, you get what you emphasize, right? They preach the ball on the defensive side of the football, taking it away. And I think that's obviously going to be an interesting storyline in this game. I think the Rams, if I'm not mistaken, have been pretty clean of late with taking care of the football. Double check. Yeah, they've had 1 turnover in the last 3 games. They haven't had but 1 multiple giveaway game in since the bye. So they've cleaned that up a bit, but obviously it's a different challenge here because the Bills are going to hunt the football, and it's not just the interceptions like you mentioned. Like I think you have 6 different players with at least 2 interceptions. They force fumbles. These DBs, you better tuck it away because they're coming. They're going to come with the peanut punch, and I think you saw that last week with Taylor Rapp forcing that fumble on Kyle Juszczyk right at the goal line. They're after the ball. It's a big part of what this identity of this defense is.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, when you don't turn the ball over and you turn the other team over, yeah, it's usually a recipe for a lot of wins. The Rams, it's not something that really cripples them. I mean, they're a +3 in the turnover margin. The Bills, they lead the league with a +17. But I think in this game in particular, you got to have a play here or there, something that kind of flips the game to try to kind of make up for the talent gap between these two teams. I think one of the big tests for the Rams in this one is, yes, if you lose to the Bills, it's not going to surprise very many people, even Rams fans. But if you do beat the Bills, it kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier in the show, then it does feel more like what happened in 2023, where you are peaking at the right time, where you do have an elite quarterback still with elite Super Bowl winning head coach with emerging weapons, and then you start feeling good about it. If you lose, you kind of start to look at other teams in your division, see what they're doing. But kind of what I point out at the top of the show is if you losing or winning has a bigger impact on their playoff odds than losing. So, I mean, if they win, the odds go up by 12%. If they lose, they go down by 6%. So, it won't necessarily end their season, but it would kind of change the landscape of the ceiling of the season for the Rams. But I think another big thing I want to talk about, too, is kind of protecting Matthew Stafford. Some more keys for the Rams to win. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams and Locked On Bills. All right, let's talk about Mint Mobile. With big wireless providers, what you see is never what you get. Somewhere between the store and your first month's bill, the price you thought you were paying magically skyrockets. With Mint Mobile, you'll never have to worry about gotchas ever again. When Mint Mobile says $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan, they mean it. I know you've been there. You want a new phone, the fanciest new iPhone, whatever it is. You sign up for something and the bill comes in. It's a little more than you expected. Well, say bye-bye to your overpriced wireless plans, jaw-dropping monthly bills, and unexpected overages. Mint Mobile is here to rescue you with premium wireless plans starting at $15 a month. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all your existing contacts. Ditch overpriced wireless with Mint Mobile's deal and get 3 months of premium wireless service for $15 a month. To get this new customer offer in your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/lockedonnfl. That's mintmobile.com/lockedonnfl. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/lockedonnfl. $45 up front payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on a limited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. And welcome back to this crossover edition of Locked On Rams and Locked On Bills. All right, Joe, here in our third segment, some more keys to the game. And I think, look, you have Josh Allen. He's clearly one of the best in the league. Matthew Stafford, kind of the big question here in Rams land is how much does he have left in the tank? Is he a future Hall of Famer? What does he need to do to get that gold jacket? And I think for this Rams team, yes, he has to bring his A game. He has to, like you said, wear that cape pretty much for them to have a chance to beat an elite team. And I think the biggest key for Matthew Stafford is staying vertical, is avoiding turnovers. And what really kind of blew my mind looking at this Bills team is the blitzing that you don't really see. I mean, they've only blitzed 76 times this season at 17.4%, but you're also getting a ton of pressure from that front four. What can you kind of say about kind of the defensive scheme and how the Bills are applying pressure this season?
They're choosy with blitzes. They don't do it a ton. They didn't blitz the 49ers a single play last week. So there's that piece. They want to get organic pressure with 4, and they want to be able to cover with 7. That's the recipe that they like to have. And I don't know that the Bills have they don't have necessarily the blue chip talent you wish that they had on their defensive line to be that type of team, but they rush in waves. They'll go 9 to 11 deep with their rotation up front, so you get fresh bodies all the time. They do lean on Greg Rousseau as their best pass rusher, and Oliver has obviously been a good interior player. I don't think he's having his best season, and of course Von Miller, long and late down, he comes in and he provides them something. So it's an all of the above effort to rush the passer. I think it's part of their plan. I wish there was more consistency at times, and I think this will be a good test with this offense, with all the different play fakes and misdirections, to see, if that could slow up the pass rush a little bit, because obviously, there's a lot built into what the Rams do schematically on the offensive side of the football that's going to make you question whether or not you want to completely sell out and get after the quarterback.
Yeah, because you look at it and you say, oh, wow, they're 16th in pressure rate, but then you look at, well, you're only blitzing 17.4% of the time. So then, like you said, you get that organic pressure. And I think really for the Rams to have any chance to win this football game, we mentioned earlier, kind of if there is an area where you can exploit on the Buffalo Bills, it's running the football and being effective with it. We mentioned Kyle Williams, 104 yards on 15 carries. Blake Corum, 42 yards on 8 carries. The Bills, 30th in yards per carry allowed at 4.9. What is it about this Buffalo Bills run defense that allows teams to have success?
Well, I think if you look at raw, just volume stats, I'm not sure they're going to tell you the real story as it relates to the Bills and their run defense. I would look more to the EPA metrics. I think the Bills are probably top 8 in the NFL in terms of run defense and in terms of EPA per rush. And the Bills make some choices here. They give light boxes at a very, very high rate. And they are designed to invite you to run the football. They're completely fine saying, come get some rushing yards. We're going to get you in a negative play at some point. And if you want to lean into running the football, that also comes with stopping the Bills on offense, because you can come in with that intent. But if you're down 10, you're down 14 before you can blink, there goes your plan to run the football so much. So that's all part of the Bills script. Yeah, they want you to invite the rushing. They want to tighten the screws in the red zone. They want to score points and say, all right, now you're one-dimensional and the Bills are two-dimensional. Come see if you can outscore us for 60 minutes. That's very much their script.
Yeah, certainly. And it's worked and it's paid dividends this season. Saw Jordan Mason, 4.8 yards per carry. But really, like you said, you look at EPA, kind of like deeper metrics, it definitely kind of paints a different picture. Now, as far as something related to this game that kind of keeps you up at night about the Rams, what is it? Because for me, I can name 15 things about the Bills that kind of strike fear into me. But I mean, when your team's had that much success, I mean, your two losses have come on the road. Now, is this going to be a road game with how many Bills fans are going to be there? That's a fair question. But is there anything that about this Rams team that kind of keeps you up at night?
Well, I have a lot of respect for Matthew Stafford. You posed the question if he's a Hall of Famer. He's absolutely a Hall of Famer. I mean, one of the most historic paces you'll ever see for production. Obviously, the situation in Detroit was a disaster. Get him out of town, he goes and wins the Super Bowl. I mean, you wonder if he was with McVay his whole career, what the legacy looks like. Stafford, I do Locked On NFL scouting. I'm pretty sure I had him as a top 5 quarterback going into this season. And so when you take Matthew Stafford, who I have all the respect for in the world, with Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua and a potent run offense, yeah, that's a lot to deal with. And obviously, I think a lot of Sean McVay as well as a head coach. And I think the Rams are unbelievable with player development. I can't tell you how many times I've looked at this roster and thought to myself, really? And then they win, right? And they've developed young talent, particularly on the defensive side of the football, at an impressive rate. And you look at some of those guys in that front, I think there's plenty of questions about how stout they could be against the run, but there's some really disruptive players in that front with Jared Verse and Braden Fiskey and Kobe Turner and Michael Height and Byron Young. And there's just a lot of different dynamic young players that you can really sell out and be havoc wreakers. And so it's all of that baked together that makes you look at this Rams team that's at home, whether there's a lot of Bills fans or not. You know, the Bills are still coming across the country. You look at all that and say, yeah, there's plenty of reasons to think that the Rams will be competitive and have a chance to win the football game.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. By the way, I have bought all the houses on Matthew Stafford as a Hall of Famer island. Trust me, I've done many an episode on why he already deserves a gold jacket. I still can't believe there's people that think that he doesn't, but that's for a different conversation. But yeah, I think 100% that the Rams are a team that they can beat anyone on their best day. And you mentioned the youth of this team. That's kind of what makes them pretty exciting. I mean, they're the second youngest team in the NFL behind the Green Bay Packers, and they just have this knack for finding guys in later rounds. I mean, you're looking at a center in Bo Limmer. There was a late round pick that no one expected to do anything. And then he's a big part of this offensive line. Last season, of course, everyone knows about what they were able to do with Puka Nacua. But I love how you brought up Byron Young, because Byron Young has been a menace this season. He's the only player to force 5 turnovers via pressure this season. So he's another player to look out for. And I just think with this Rams team, with the veterans they have, with the season that they put together, low lows, high highs, and the fact they're still in the mix after 12 games, I don't think that they're as afraid of a Bills team as a lot of teams would be that have this much youth and an experience on their roster. So I definitely think that really pressure-wise, I think they're going to be loose. They're going to try to make up for some of these primetime duds. I mean, it's not a primetime game, but still a little NFL game of the week action, at least in our parts, because it was a dud against the Eagles. It was a dud against the Dolphins. They did come through on Thursday Night Football against the Vikings. They beat the 49ers earlier in the year. But I think the big takeaway from this game is if you can find a way to beat the Bills, like I said earlier, that shows you can beat an elite team, which would kind of change the conversation about how dangerous the Rams could be in the playoffs. That's what I'm looking at here. And look, I'm not here to say the Rams are going to win, but I definitely think it's going to be competitive. I think it'll come down to the fourth quarter. I'm not sure if you want to throw out a prediction. I save mine till Friday. If you want to throw out one, you can totally throw out one. But definitely I'm looking at a close game. I think that the Rams do cover in this one, a 4.5-point underdog, according to FanDuel at the moment.
You think they cover? Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah.
Wow. I'd be surprised if they did. And I like I said, I do think there's a path for the Rams. Some of the challenges that I look at for the Rams to actually cover this in this game is, the run defense for the Rams. I think they have disruptive players in that front, but the Bills are very good at running the football, and that's not just with Josh Allen. They really run it with James Cook. They run it with Ray Davis. They run it with Ty Johnson, and we've seen this Rams team give up a lot of rushing production. Though everybody remembers the Eagles game, but there's been other ones: the Cardinals game, the Lions game, the Saints last week. Run defense is leaky, and the Bills are going to lean on that rushing offense, and they're willing to do it. I mean, they rushed for 220 last week against San Francisco. Josh Allen threw the ball with 14 times, something like that. They're willing to do that, on top of leaning into some play action as well, where the Rams are 29th in EPA per play, defending play action passes. It's been a struggle. We talked about the tackling. It's one of the worst tackling defenses in the NFL. They're dead last in EPA per pass attempt when targeting running backs. They're 28th when targeting slots. They give up a ton of yards after catch. It's the script. It's the Bill script that the Rams struggle with. And I guess, again, I am not saying that the Rams don't have a puncher's chance in this game. I think I've done a good job of illustrating the respect that I do have for the operation. But I think they need the game to go a certain way that would be uncharacteristic of the Bills team that we've seen this year. And so I think the Bills cover this one pretty comfortably.
Hey, that's 100% fair. And it's a pretty good chance you're going to be right in all of this. It's just with this Rams team, you've had a lot of heartbreaking, close losses this season. They've shown that outside of that Eagles loss that really they can pretty much play with anyone in this league. And I think that this entire season has just been kind of crescendoing towards the end of the season where they know that you got the Bills, you got the 49ers on TNF, you got a couple division matchups. At the end, you play the Jets. So they realize what's at stake because, I mean, you're looking at this Rams team that, look, talk a lot about Matthew Stafford. This could be his last season in LA. I mean, this season could go in a lot of different directions, and it could affect a lot of players on this roster if they don't have the season they were hoping to get. And that what they were hoping to get this season was a division championship, was to get a home playoff game. And through this turmoil they've had all year, all their goals are still intact. So it's just a really big opportunity for this Rams team. And look, at some point you owe this Bills team that's kind of owned them for a while. They're 9-5 all time against the Rams. You kind of owe them one.
I don't disagree with that. I just think the matchups are difficult, especially when we didn't really talk about the Rams pass defense, which has had a multitude of issues this year. 24th in EPA per pass, 27th in yards per pass. And I mean, I think there's enough to be concerned about with the run defense. And then just how do they match up in the secondary? Do they have enough there to handle the depth of the Bills' weapons? So I'll say this. I think the Rams can lose this game and still win this division. I think they can go on a run. I think they can win their last four against the Niners, Jets, Cardinals, and Seahawks, especially with the Cardinals and Seahawks being home games to do this. So although my expectations are low for the Rams this week, and I'm not a Bills homer that comes in and preaches that the Bills are the greatest team ever and anything like that. I'm very honest about the league in general. I cover the whole thing. I'm very aware of who the Rams are. I think they can win the last four. I don't know that this game is the most important of what's remaining. It would be a good measuring stick. I think it's a confidence boost for a very young football team, but I wouldn't be surprised if they drop this one and win the last four and we see the Rams playing in beyond week 18.
Yeah, I mean, if you can run the table after this, you'd feel good about that. Like I said, your playoff chances dropped 6% with a loss, so it's not the end of the season. A big opportunity on paper. Definitely, it's going to be an uphill battle. Would be a pretty significant upset for sure, but it's the National Football League. Anything can happen, and it's the Rams at SoFi. But it's going to be exciting, and you're going to have Bills Mafia in the house in force. So let's see what we got. But that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Rams and Locked On Bills. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMac_LA. And you can follow Joe Marino over at the Joe Marino over on the X. Go sub to his pod. Go listen to his pod. Even if you're a Rams fan, also NFL scouting too. This guy knows all things ball, so definitely go give him a follow. And until next time, whose house is Locked On Rams House and Bills Mafia.